Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's show, we are going to tackle this guy. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill up with trees and then we water as we need to. Try and get rid of those air pockets. It's been a couple of days since I've cranked out my last video. As of midnight last night, it's stay-at-home Minnesota. The governor a couple of days ago with the next executive order saying that all Minnesotans should spend the next 2 weeks in their homes, places where they live, and only the necessity folks get to go to work. We get to all work from our homes, those who have those kind of jobs. So it's still continue to be trying times and uncertainty, which is the case with most of my bonsais. You never know what's going to happen. So we're going to continue to work today. We're going to work on this little guy right here, as I mentioned. So we have a whole bunch of lilacs in our backyard. And they've been there longer than we own the house. We've been here for about 5 years. And I've done some cutting and clipping and taken some trees from the pre-existing ones. And I've done a couple of bonsai samples. And what's been really good about this species is it grows really fast. Now this one's been in this pot or a pot for 2 years, and I got this real clunky old piece and got some growth that came up on here. So I might do some carving here with my Dremel tool today and just see what's going to happen with all these multiple trunks. Now these guys grow like weeds. So in our backyard where we have the big tall, 10 footers or 8 footers, I guess, there's all kinds of new whips that grow up every single season. You can almost cut it like grass sometimes, it's so thick. So it's a really cool bonsai to practice on. The flowers, of course, on this one though are probably the size of my hand. So perspective wise, it's kind of tough, but I've yet to have a flowering bonsai of this plant. So we're going to see if this continues to put up new shoots and maybe get some flowers in the next couple of years. And if I keep it trimmed back and relatively small, perhaps the flowers will be a little bit smaller. But even if I have one big flower in the spring, it'll smell super nice. It'll be kind of fun. So we're just going to keep working on it because it's just an experiment. And I love to see what the plants are going to do when we do the things we do with bonsai. So let's start digging this one out of the pot. I don't know if you noticed, but we have a little damage to this pot from winter. And we're going to go ahead and put this in a new pot, probably just one of my plastic pots, because this is kind of an experiment. Not this humongously cool bonsai per se. I'm just kind of seeing what it's going to do. Let's get it out of this pot though and see what the roots look like. All right. So we're going to put the old GoPro on the chest mount for this video. Got my camera phone all set up and we're just going to start cranking away at our bonsai repot. This one should come apart real easy compared to some of the ones I've done this spring. So lilac trees, of course, are super beautiful, super fragrant in the spring with those buds, the flowering. There's the Little Miss Kims that are smaller. I should use that for bonsai species. It'd be a lot better. The Little Miss Kims are definitely a smaller flower for sure. But when you have a big pile of these in your backyard and they grow like weeds, you just have a whole bunch of specimens right there ready to try. So I have a great big one in my yard that's in a homemade box that I made, probably a good 1+ foot wide and a 1+ foot deep. It might even be 2 feet wide with some more samples from the backyard. Trying to see what they can do. And what they have a lot of in common is they have a lot of this dead wood. So I'm trying to show like, this story of trees that have been just damaged over the years, but then have these beautiful flowers in the end. Now I know this guy's tied in, so it's not going to come out perfectly smooth right away. I'm going to cut that out. Find out where these wires are. There's one. Very fine roots so far. I have not transplanted this one yet. since I put it in this pot. I think it was 2 years ago. There we go. Got some movement. Something up here doesn't want to come out. There we go. So another pot bites the dust, unfortunately. We'll get rid of that one. One of your typical nursery style pots you get for 15 to 20 bucks. Not super expensive. Don't typically expect those to last terribly long in Minnesota winters if I'm keeping them outside in the winter. All right, so I got my 2 screens there. And here we go. Let's see what this has done. There's my wire. All right, got that. And then this one. Gotta find where that one connected. There we go. Gotta be careful. This part here, I should cut down much smaller when I bury these, so then when you do take them apart, you're not ruining the roots drastically when you go ahead and do that. So this was probably a clump of trunks of a lilac tree. And again, if I show you my backyard someday in a video and show you the path of lilacs in the back, it's kind of a fence in the back, if you will, of our yard, kind of borders our backyard, the north side of the yard. So this was just a big old chunk from something I just dug up from one of those series of lilac tree groves back there. And it's all connected. I mean, they're all underneath. All these roots, I'm sure, are interchanged in a massive structure. They do grow out and send up all these little new whips, if you will, these yearlings every single year, multiple times. And they grow pretty fast. Now, I did notice a great big slowdown when I put them in the bonsai pot. So having not as much room to move or to grow may have certainly affected the growth of these lilacs. So there's my root structure. So super fine roots, not a lot of big ones. But there's a fair amount there. You see, even got a little bit of grass in here. A couple of grass that was seeds floating around that kind of got into the bonsai pot. So I'm just going to try to clean it out a little bit more. And then we're just going to decide what kind of pot it's going to go into. I think it's just going to go into the same size pot, but plastic. Again, this is an experiment. I'm even going to use more recycled soil with this one, just because it is one of my experiment trees and not this fancy bonsai. And as you saw when I sifted through this soil to begin with, there's not a lot of breakdown of products, but we're going to use recycled for this. So I have my pot right here. Let's just go see if this is going to be a big enough pot, and by far, certainly a big enough pot. I'll be trimming some roots on here. So, and this pot already has the grate right in there, so I don't have to worry. I'm just going to go back to front because I've got a nice long growth of roots that grow from left to right. So I don't think that'll be an issue. So there's one. We'll get the other one in here. And I don't think this lilac tree is going to go blowing anywhere in any wind, so I wouldn't have to be tying this one down with a huge amount of heavy weight by any stretch. All right, so we're going to put a little recycled soil in there. I'll get that from down below and be back in a moment. So before I put this in, we're always going to look for the front of our tree. And this could be a front this time around. This is the branch that's still alive. It's got these 2 feeders, and we look at this great big scab. So that's why it's always been this way. So I think I'm going to keep it this way. And this kind of is getting the new apex. We got a branch going over here. I'm probably going to shrink these 2 down both with a Dremel and just make the old, crusty, broken off pieces a little bit more small and manageable. And we got some age, makes this look like a kind of an older tree. Let's cut off a few roots though first. Make this a little bit more symmetrical, if you will, and balance out the vigor. And again, this one hasn't grown tremendously fast. And it certainly wasn't root bound by any stretch. Just trimming off the bottom so it lays flat and have no roots shooting straight down, any thicker roots. All right. So the biggest question with this tree is this big clump right here. As you can see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shoots here. This has kind of an aerial root here almost that's going down to the ground. It's kind of cool, and it's got a really nice curve to it. This one shoots out way this way. I'm going to leave most of it intact. I just have no reason. I have no reason right now to really tear things apart. I am going to dig in here a little bit further to see how far some of these trunks go down. A little more texture in the bottom of this main trunk right over here that shoots to the right where all this big cluster comes in. And again, whenever you have a forest of most trees, most people like an odd number, especially when it's less than 9. If you guys start getting above 9, there's so many trees in there. The opinions, vary. But you got so many trees when you're more than 9 that it doesn't really look like super symmetrical with the even number anymore. Look at that. I got an old tie down of some sort. That must have been tying something down. So what to do? So what I see here is an old branch that was cut off right there. And that's where these shoots are growing from right now. And I'm just going to cut that whole thing off. I don't want that. So look at that. Little stump, 3 new branches. We don't need that on there. Just clean it up a little bit more. All right, now this tree right here, it's got this aerial root type thing here, and it's going this way and coming around back over there. Kind of wrapping around this guy right here. So if I keep this one, do I keep this one or do I keep those back two? This one's in our face kind of right here. If I twist it more this way, it doesn't look so bad, but then this one gets hidden. But of course I can move it around with some rocks. Looks pretty loose. I can do whatever I want with that one. I can do the same with this though. These could probably almost be separated. I do like seeing the crux of this a little bit more, so I would twist it more this way, and then this one would have to come up this way for like a forest of 3, and then I can get rid of some of that. So again, I'm going to cut that one off, because that's got some root structure that I don't really need or want. Don't know how deep that one goes. As I dig around a little more, some of these roots, so there we go, some roots start to, there we go, see, look at that. So this right here can I can slowly pull this out, there you go, and wrap it around this way. So now the aerial root of this tree right there is going to come down more here instead of wrapping between here. So I got this guy right here that's almost loose and coming off. Where is it going? Yeah, it's just a really weird system of root on that one. I just don't even want that on there. Let's just take it right off. Right now, I could keep this as a new tree, right there. But I've got so many in my plant room, and it's spring, and I got so many outside to contend to. I'm not going to worry about that with this one because I'm doing lots of experiments with these guys right here, and the other one I told you I have outside, so I'm not going to worry about that. So there's still a pretty hefty piece of trunk right here, or root, I should say. And just pulled that one out with my hands. And there's a big chunk right here. I don't know where this one's going to. There we go. See, I just was able to bend that back and find out that this root is going nowhere. And that's attached to this one. It's attached to this guy right here. but it was going in a very weird way, coming back up. This was coming back up and tucked in there, so I just don't need that. I want that to grow more down. We just trimmed it up now. Now roots can continue to grow down. So I still want these roots to kind of flare out as best I can in a radial pattern as best I can. And this looks like just kind of a neat little series of lilac trees that are just feeding off each other. So now you can see much more of kind of that structure. All right. There we go. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to crisscross this one to the back. And start this one right here. I was a little liberal with my wire here. Whew. Got to work on that, Dave. I do save all my extra, though. Gotta grab my pliers. All right, so if this is going to be about like that, I'm gonna pull up and twist. That's kind of in place right now. And this guy can go right back here between these two guys. As long as I can tuck some of these roots down here. There we go. So you see that right there? I lifted this root above the wire so that can kind of grow and be maybe a potential good aerial root down the road. Keep it growing. All right. So this was a pretty easy one to attach. Nice little crisscross pattern down there. Gonna break these up a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and do what I recommended and make these a lot shorter this time. There. Tuck them down. There we go. I can move this with soil a little bit. So there's the new tree. So again, I'm choosing to use recycled soil this time. I didn't re-sift this one. I probably would be best to do that here in the near future. But for this tree, again, my experimental tree with really huge flowers in a lilac tree, a normal standard lilac, I'm okay with the recycled soil until I see what this thing becomes in the next couple of years. It might be super cool. I'm hoping it'll be super cool. You see some of those bonsai sometime of like an apple tree, and there's one apple, one piece of fruit. That's what I kind of envisioned for this tree right here. There's going to be one of those lilac flowers that just blooms. So this is the one I want to put some more rocks underneath here. Make sure they're pumped in there really good. Let's give this tree a little bit more flexibility over here. There we go. We can see that curve a little bit better. Give this one a little watering. Kind of washes all that grit and powdery stuff down to the bottom. Hopefully soaking right through. There we go. So there's our tree. So we have a lilac with 3 trunks right now. Got this main structure over here with these kind of 2 side ones over here. They're all connected. I'm gonna do a little bit of drummeling on this guy back here. See if we can peel back some of this this monster here, make it a little bit smaller. can already do that with my cutter here. Just want to make it smaller and more manageable for the Dremel. I don't have a very powerful Dremel by any stretch. All right. So make it look damaged, but just not so big. There we go. All right. So I'm going to clean up my mess here a little bit, and I'm going to get my Dremel tool out. Dry it up so I don't electrocute myself. Be back in a flash. Okay, we are ready to start Dremeling this guy. So I'm pretty new to the Dremel. I've used it bits and pieces on some projects over the years. Essentially, when branches break off on a big heavy tree, I know a lot of times they just kind of break off this way. Or they might break off this way, and then they have this big open wound right here. So that's kind of just what I'm going to go for. I'm just going to turn it on and get it started, and let's just kind of see what happens. Well, one thing I'm certainly discovering is all the dust that's settling right here, which might plug up some of my gravel. So I have to make sure that I should be putting something down on here to protect that. I don't have anything close by to do that, but perhaps some, I don't know, I might have to put some paper towels down there. That might work. That'll help. Let's get going. There. I'm going to stop right there for today. So it looks like it's got this little concave little curve in here, like this part of this branch just ripped right off. And then now we got this guy up here. Now I'm awfully close to this branch right here, so I have to be super careful what I decide to do with this one. Part of me wants to get it just below this bud here before I do some carving. So let me see if I can maybe do some of that real quick. It's pretty thick, but it is dead. Just don't want to break that branch. So I'm going to see if I can create this same little indent like this tree broke off as well. There, we don't have a big jump there. So something just ripped off here. This will get aged and change color. I don't have any lime sulfur to put on there right now, which most artists do. we'll just leave this where it is right now. Let's remove some of the rocks and the paper towels. So there we go. So I had round clumps there before. Now it looks like a little bit more of a ripping, jarring off in a big storm years ago, and then this one ripped off too, but it still wants to survive and grow up here, and maybe it'll turn into some pretty tree and we'll get kind of a big old lilac bloom here. And then this guy here and this guy here will just kind of make out this odd number of 3 forest, mini forest, and we got our tree. All right, well that was fun. We did a nice little number on there with the Dremel today. So I was able to shave this one off, make it look less round. This right here is, I think it got most of what I was looking for. Like this big branch used to exist and it just kind of ripped right off, but it still survived the backside and it's growing, trying to get a new tree. Let's see if it fills up this year. And we've got these other ones here just for rounding it out. Fun. All right. There you go. So there's our addition of the lilac tree. I'll show you an addition later on with my big lilac tree that I have in the backyard. Now again, it's like about a 2-foot wide box by a 1 to 18-inch deep box full of all kinds of dead stuff that I can start carving to and just see what it does. It's starting to just barely bud out here as the spring is getting into full flame. So that does it for another edition of Dave's Bonsai. We'll see what this thing does and give you an update pretty soon. All right, we'll catch you on the next one, everybody, and please stay safe. Welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into 2 shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. Try to get rid of those air pockets.